We are in Hubs! Yeah, we're in Hubs. How get around that? Massive shout out to the 4 Hubs going on right now. We are stoked that we get to be together. But also massive shout out if you're tuning in. You're not at a hub, but you're tuning in to the very first PACT5 premiere YouTube video. It's great to have you along. We're going to have a wild lot of fun tonight. There's heaps of kind of cool things going on in the show. We're going to catch up a bit later with someone who's pregnant, and we're going to kind of have a bit of a pregnant challenge is going to be kind of happening. Lukey J is going to bring the word a bit later. So we're looking forward to that.
Stoked.
But
Jimmy,
big week,
man. Big week. We had a big week last week as well for PACT5. In fact, we had a big debate on camera, which is awesome.
We had a great debate. That was a great debate, and we settled that debate. Kaboom!
No,
Jimmy J was right again.
Jimmy Day. Yeah, I'll give you that. But so we settled the debate of, does Milo milk go down the bottom of the glass, or do you put the milk in first, then you put the Milo milk in? Yes. Now, you guys said it pretty much all except for 2, that it goes in first, which I didn't think was right, so I actually took it a step further. I went to the CEO of Milo, which is the Milo company, and I sent them a message, which is on the screen now, which gave us the final result. And look, Jimmy, we tied. It's either way. They can't tell you. That's the final line.
Well, whatever helps you sleep at night, bro. All I remember is that you only got 2 votes supporting you. So that be that. And the truth is, you need whatever support you can get, whatever can help you sleep at night, because we are 2 weeks away from Mr. Muscle Man Challenge, where Jimmy J is about to complete the challenge champion, because I am 4-0 up. And so no matter what happens in this next one, I'm still going to be 4 up on you. So I'm looking forward to that.
But you've seen my training. You've seen what I've been up to. In fact, this week was even bigger. It was better for my training. In fact, this could be the biggest event in my training program. It's massive, brother. But let's take a look at actually what went down this week when little Lukey J was training me.
How many challenges you won? Let me answer that. None. And how many times did you even win a round? Oh wait, none.
Lukey J! This is your last chance to be able to beat Jimmy. Last set, best set. Son, you have done it. Ready?
Ready.
Lukey J! Lukey J! Lukey J! Lukey J! Lukey J!
Alright.
So stoked, man. I'm so keen for this. We've got the press conference next week. Then we've got Mr. Muscle Man Challenge the week after.
2 weeks.
Where I take my first win.
Well, you know, a couple of things, right? Whatever happens in this thing, I mean, the chances are I'm going to go up 5-zip because we've seen this before, and you say you're going to win and you don't. But the thing is, even if you do, I'm not like that hyped for this, because even if you do, okay, so what? We end the term on me 4-1. I still am the people's champion. I still am the champion, so I'm good with that.
Well, let's just excited up a bit for a start.
Yes.
There should be a consequence.
There definitely
this
should.
is the final event of
the
term.
consequence should be for the end of the challenge. Like, it's a full challenge thing. So the consequence is
who wins overall.
Who wins overall? Yeah. And I'm saying consequence, whoever wins overall, wax strips, 2 of them, 1 on each calf, and the other person gets to rip them off.
Yeah. See, that's awesome, and I'm really down for that.
Yeah, good.
But this is like the biggest challenge of the term. I'm going to be honest. It's the biggest challenge of the term, and in my opinion, and I'm sure these guys' opinion, it's worth 5 points. This is worth 5 points.
This is your attempt at a stitch up. Because to be honest, you need some practice, bro. I'm not going to lie. The reality is, why would I agree to that? It's not worth 5. It's worth 1. Which means we will do the Mr. Muscle Man Challenge. You have an opportunity to restore some dignity. But in the end, I am going to get to rip those wax strips off your leg. That's what's going to happen.
What about if we sweeten this up a little bit? What would I have to do to make you say yes to it being worth 5 points?
5 points.
Yeah, 5 points. What's the consequence for me if I lose what's the consequence that I have to face?
I tell you what. Here's what I'm thinking. All right, 2 weeks, 14 days, Survivor Challenge.
What does this mean?
For 14 days, you got to sleep in a swag outside.
Yep.
And you can only eat rice and beans for 14 days.
Rice and beans, like just that's all.
That's it, straight.
Nothing.
14 days, rice and beans. So you can't have your protein shakes, you can't have your chalky milk, you can't have your Fruit Loops, you can't have your Supreme Chicken that you love. You cannot, rice and beans only. And for 14 days, and you have to sleep in a swag.
Oh.
Outside, not inside. In winter.
But for 5 points?
The waxing the legs thing stays. So if I lose,
Yeah.
the overall thing, it's the wax the legs. But if you lose,
Yeah.
it's the wax the legs and the 14-day Survivor Challenge.
5 points. Oh. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
All right, here we go, people. Did you get that 14 days? You have no idea. Lukey J only eating rice and beans for 14 days will be next level. We will vlog that if that happens, because I can tell you what, you would not want to miss the action that takes place. And the best thing of all, Lukey J's been training the wrong thing, because the Mr. Muscle Man Challenge, it ain't all about just how much you bench press, because we all know you bench press more than me. We already know that. The thing is, I've been practicing the right thing, and that is rolling the dice, because it is all about the roll of the dice. This is a game that is filled with chance. So, brother, there is chance on the table, and I'll tell you what, if you are on Team Jimmy J, then I'm going to tell you right now, you're on the right team, and we're about to see Lukey J in the biggest stitch-up of all time. We're about to see him 14-day Survivor Challenge and wax his legs, and I threw that in last minute because we'd already talked about some of this, and he didn't know about the waxing your legs, so I am so keen for this. It is going down. Oh, yeah.
This is getting bigger and better every day.
Every
This is massive.
day.
This is
I'm so
ginormous.
keen. This is like, so good. Now, the thing is, we've got to keep moving because I did spring a few things on Lukey J that he wasn't expecting now, so I'm pretty keen, and he's a little bit thrown, and I'm just excited. I'm just pumped. Can you tell I'm keen? But, Lukey J, I got a question for you.
Yeah, hit us up.
When you're traveling on public transport,
Yeah.
what do you have to when do you have to vacate your seats?
We have to vacate. Is this a trick? Or
No,
is
it's
it-
a
just
question.
straight-
Like,
okay,
what
straight.
are you going to do for it?
So, pregnant?
Yep.
Pregnancy? The elderly?
Yep.
Mums with kids as well, I've heard. You can do.
Well, I have someone here who covers all three of those categories. So get out of your chair, because I have a random old pregnant mum of the little child. Check out! Hey everybody, look who it is, it's Sarah Jontek. Hey, welcome to the PACT5 studio.
Hey, sorry, can I just be a massive diva? Can I get a cushion for my back?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
No worries, but we produce everything here at the PACT5 studio.
Well, while I'm at it, can I have a cheeseburger?
Of course. Oh, gee whiz, all right. There we go. Like I said, we can produce anything. Oh, look,
Oh, thanks.
that is rank. Anyway, there you go.
What about a packet of kettle chips?
Of course.
Speaking camembert.
Of course, there you go.
There you go.
Mate, we aim to please here at the PACT5 studio.
Set
I
up.
was actually really keen for a cheeseburger, and then it went on the ground. Oh. Hey, it is so good to have you here. Obviously, as has been pointed out a few times, you are pregnant.
I am.
Number 2.
Yeah, number 2, I've already got a little girl, Elle, so she's 18 months. And number 2 on the way, another girl.
Nice. I'm a bit of an expert in terms of when it comes to having babies. I've got 2 myself.
Okay,
well,
you
when
give me all the labour tips.
well, when I say I'm an expert in having babies, my wife has actually had a couple of babies. Well, I have 2 children. You looking forward to having number 2? What's exciting you about that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for Elle to have a sister, and yeah, I'm excited for the little cute newborn stage again, although it's good and bad that comes with that, but yeah, pretty keen. I know that Mike is looking forward to, but also probably a bit terrified of being outnumbered completely by women. So yeah, keen to just up that number on him one more time.
Yeah, cool. So Mike is your husband. You guys were youth leaders at Christ Central not that long ago. Shout out to those of you that were in Mike and Sarah's groups. But, as you kind of think about, being a follower of Jesus now, how did that journey kind of start for you in terms of, we were talking a bit earlier about your parents and that sort of influence. Yeah, talk to us a bit about how, I guess, the beginnings of that journey started.
Yeah, so, mum and dad always taught us about God and Jesus. I'm heaps thankful for that. Grew up going to church. So God was part of my life from a young age, and I did have a sense when I was young, even though I probably didn't understand everything about Christianity, I wanted to be a Christian, and I was thankful to God and Jesus. Yeah.
What was that journey like for you in terms of taking perhaps that initial kind of influence and awareness of God and a desire to sort of want some sort of connection with God? How did that sort of play out as you kind of became a teenager and then a young adult? And what was that journey like?
Yeah. So as I became a teenager, I think it probably became a bit, looking back, it became a bit obvious I didn't really get the gospel, in the sense that I probably was doing things more just because of like what mum and dad were doing. I chose to go to a different youth group just because it was more fun and like my friends were there. But yeah, I did have a sense as a teenager that I wanted to be a Christian, but at the same time, there was sort of always this tension. I kind of also just wanted to do whatever was the most fun, and sometimes that was youth.
Yes. Now, speaking of fun, dressing up was a thing that was fun for you through that kind of phase. We've definitely seen a bit of that. Do you have a favourite kind of dress up moment that you kind of recall from the many, many, many moments of dress up that just so happened to be across social media?
Oh, well, yeah, I feel like when I dressed up as Tweedledum and Tweedledee with a friend and wore like these big bubble suits, that was pretty funny. It was sort of like wearing a big sumo suit. So that was probably up there with the faves. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I did just want to kind of, mostly I just wanted to get photos of Sarah dressing up on the kind of PACT5. So we've now done that. You can continue where we left off, but just chasing after fun as like a teenager was your sort of objective.
Yeah, and I guess like, doing what friends did mattered. Like, I guess that's probably a pretty normal thing. And then, as I became 18 and left school and just had heaps more independence, my parents actually moved overseas a year after that, so I had even more independence. Stopped going to church. My friends, even that I went to youth with, weren't really living as Christians, and all my new friends that I made through work weren't Christian. And it was just sort of like this slow, I guess, drift away from God. And for a bunch of years, I was pretty much just chasing, making lots of money at work, buying lots of nice things, partying on the weekend. Would never want to deny God, but come on, I didn't really need Jesus. My life was pretty sweet.
Yeah, having chased after that, whether it's the money or the things or the fun or the parties, like what would you want to say to yourself, your 18, 19, 20-year-old self, if you could now, knowing what you know about kind of chasing after those things?
Yeah. I would go back and say, stop spending that money and save it. Stop making a bunch of dumb decisions that you're going to regret. But yeah, I would say to myself, like, check out the gospel. I wasn't truly understanding the gospel at that point. To me, Jesus was sort of this guy that loved me, but I didn't really understand who God was, how holy he was, how bad my sin was. So I never really had that, what Jesus has actually done for me on the cross until, going to church, on my own as, I guess, an adult, and hearing the gospel clearly preached. And that was what just like hit me like a bus. Like I was terrified before God when I realized how holy he was. Yeah. And it was at that point that I recognized my sin. It was just like, this is what I need Jesus for. Yeah. And also recognizing that where this life isn't it.
Yes.
I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Even in the churches that I grew up in, it was a very big focus on here and now, being happy. But nah, like eternity is forever.
Yes.
And right now and here is quite short in comparison. It's very short in comparison. So I would say to myself, like, what are you doing? Don't be an idiot. Look who Jesus is. Look who what he's done for you. And he's the only thing worth living for.
Yes. Yeah. I think that sense of, when you live for the here and the now, you quickly discover, because it is so short, that life is so short, like it can't actually give you any lasting satisfaction because it actually has an end time. So it doesn't matter whether it's money, whether it's, good times, or even if it's just like happiness and blessing, in the now, like it's got such an end time, and that sense of satisfaction just kind of drifts away so quickly. Hey, I'm keen to try these because I know you've been kind of craving them. So I've been watching them at the table there going, I just need to at least give it a crack.
They're pretty good. They're my favourite. So a little bit fancy. I don't know if they're too fancy for you.
Yeah.
Camembert and fig.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I can see why you crave these, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're good.
It's good. I'm not going to lie. I've downed entire packets of these multiple times.
Yeah. Wow.
And when Mike tries to share with me, I'm not always the most compliant. So
That is actually very good. It's a very good chip. Hey, last question before we go and do a pregnancy challenge, which we can talk about in a moment. But before we get to that, what does declaring and displaying Jesus look like for Sarah Jontek now? In terms of mum, about to be mum of two, life in Brisbane, a husband kind of working for church, studying. What does that look like for you now?
Yeah, well, Mike and I moved up here to Brisbane because we were keen to proclaim Jesus in southeast Queensland. So, where I guess even where we chose to live, like the street that we chose to buy a house in, we kind of made those decisions based off the fact that we want to be involved with our neighbours, involved in our community. I guess creating relationships where we can proclaim the gospel.
Yeah.
And it has been pretty cool. We have maintained some good friendships over the years with some of our neighbours. That's something, our neighbours are people that Mike and I are always praying for. And being a mum has certain restrictions, but also real good opportunities there.
Yeah.
Even joining local mums groups has been something that I've done pretty intentionally. To make friends, to make, friends for my kids.
Yes.
But also, with the hope of sharing Jesus with them. And it can be tricky sometimes to get past that mum talk and, we're just talking about our kids and their sleep and their nappies and brr. But at the same time, there is such an opportunity there. So I guess in this season of life, that's what it looks like for me. It means that during the week, I'm a bit more freed up, that I can actually try to catch up with people to read the Bible. And also, like, part of what I want to do is equip other people as well to be disciple makers, to be proclaiming Jesus as well.
Awesome. We've loved having you guys come up. I think, one of the things that you and Mike have really championed in terms of life is that intentionality around relationship kind of building and development. And I think, the reality is that can apply to anywhere. You can be intentional about the relationships you build at school. You can be intentional about relationships you build in mothers groups, in sporting clubs, and and wherever you might be at. It might be the mum's talk that you struggle to get past, or the assignment talk that you struggle to get past at school, or the statistics and game analysis at the sporting club. But the reality is there are opportunities everywhere to declare and display Jesus to people around us. And I think one of the things we've loved is just the way that you guys have been so intentional in encouraging us to kind of do that. So thanks for coming in and for sharing with us. We're going to do a bit of a pregnancy challenge, because I did mention before, I'm a bit of an expert when it comes to, navigating all things babies and whatever. And I'm 4-0, undefeated in challenges in terms of the way we go about things here at PACT5. So confidently, you and I think we're going to go head to head in a challenge to do with being pregnant.
Cool.
Let's make that happen. All right. Well,
You're enjoying
those,
aren't you?
I am. As you can tell, I've suddenly become pregnant. Now, as I've repeatedly said, I'm an expert when it comes to having babies. I'm not quite sure really what all the fuss is about. It does not look that hard. You get to eat food whenever you like. People give you foot massages. And let's be real, this is an easy gig. We are going to go head to head, you and I, in a pregnancy challenge, whereby we will do 3 tests. Sorry, my child is just kicking slightly. Loser needs to eat Nutella out of a nappy. Now, the first challenge is this. You're about to be, well, you already have a little daughter.
Yeah.
I have a little daughter as well. We are going to pick up our children and our daughters, and place them in the car seat. It's a race, and the first person to do that successfully will score the first point.
So put them in, buckle them up.
Put them in, buckle them up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not really sure. This one doesn't actually have any buckles, so we might just roll with just
Putting them in there.
Sounds like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Let's make that happen. Alright, we've got the daughter, got our daughters here, we've got our daughters here, so we're ready. Easy gig, eat food, whatever you want, brilliant chips, foot massages all the time. This is such an easy gig. I'm gonna definitely win.
Didn't give me no foot massages.
Shh, sit down, you're on safety. Okay, here we go. We are ready to go. Someone count us in.
3, 2, 1, go.
Ha! I nearly gave birth halfway through that, to be honest. Alright. Well, that didn't exactly go to plan. Alright. Second challenge coming up. Now, challenge number 2 is, I hear that some women might say it's difficult to paint their toenails whilst pregnant. Well, I am here to show you that is wrong. Now, rules of this, you got to paint all your toes. You can't go outside of the lines, and you got to get all 10 toes. You have 10 toes, right?
Yep.
Good. You got to have all 10 toes covered without going outside the lines. First person to get all 10 wins.
And 3, 2, 1, toes.
See, I have a big belly in the way, and it is.
What stitch up is this? This doesn't even work.
You might have to do a couple of coats with the glitter to get those in. Yeah, see, I'm quite uncomfortable as I do this. That's why my toenails aren't currently painted.
I mean, the fact
This big belly is getting in the way.
How you have this second already? Yeah. Look at this. Doesn't even work. Oops. Turn out. A bit of polish.
Oh, I messed that one up, but I can fix it.
Oh, they might be a little bit uncomfortable, just saying.
And done.
What? Well, I got close, right?
Oh.
Alright, one more challenge. It's just purely for my dignity, if in fact I have any left. But one more challenge. Final challenge before we get to Nutella nappy eating. We are back. I am actually quite surprised at how quickly pregnancy has taken to me because pregnancy brain earlier meant that I forgot to put my microphone back on. I was very preoccupied with caring for this dear loved one, and so completely forgot. So that's why suddenly we have really nice audio for me, whereas previously very reverby and quite in the distance. But it's good to get a microphone back because even though this is just for my own personal dignity, it will be nice to win at least one final challenge before we, when I say we, I am going to tuck into that incredibly delicious looking nappy. What a moment that will be for me. You sure you don't want to?
I'm all right. I deal with enough of that each day, so.
Final challenge is this. It is a race to put your shoes on. So we've already done a little bit in terms of the toenails, but now we're going to race to put our shoes on, and so in a chance to reclaim some level of dignity, here's to hoping I can at least get one of the 3 pregnancy challenges. All right, someone count us in for this final challenge while Luke in the corner just continues to add Nutella to that nappy. Let's go.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go. That's it. Don't mind me.
Quick labour.
I don't really have anything to say. Let's be real, this pregnancy thing is way too hard. Mad respect for my wife, mad respect for anyone who actually is pregnant. That is dead set disgusting. Feels remarkably heavy, like a really bad nappy. All right, let's do it. Well, Sarah, it was a pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you
Thank you.
for coming in. We've got a PACT5 t-shirt for you. We're sort of running a bit low on sizes, but hopefully maybe this will kind of work for you given that you are pregnant. And if not, you can pass it on to Mike. But thank you for coming in. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Oh
go
gosh.
clean myself up and that'll do me.
Well, there you go, Jimmy. You look like you've cleaned yourself up after what went down.
I have. Got to say, good fun. It was great having Sarah in. Lots of banter. Truth is, I have a lot of respect for pregnant women, especially my wife, Chelsea. She did an incredible job with our 2 little kids. So it was awesome getting Sarah in and chatting about faith. It was great. Speaking of faith, we're going to jump into the Word right now, as we often do on a Friday night. We regularly do, every Friday night, in fact. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump into 1 Peter. But tonight, mate, we're switching up the roles a little bit, aren't we?
we are.
Just going to, mix it up.
Yeah, well, now I'm in the hot seat and you're asking the questions.
That's
so
it.
all
That's
brand
it.
new.
Oh, wow, I'm looking forward to you kind of bringing the Word. We're continuing on with 1 Peter. We're into chapter 4. Last week, we kind of had a look at the challenges that are there for declaring and displaying Jesus. But what are we looking at tonight?
Yeah, so this week we're going to look a bit deeper into the Christian lifestyle and what a life looks like when you live it for God, but then also how that can change how people treat you. Then on the back of that, we're also going to look at why it's still so important to live that way.
So good. So good. Well, we got Jack. He's going to read the Bible for us. So why don't you open up your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 4. We're going to hit off with the first 6 verses there. So we're going to hand it over to Jack.
Hello, I'm Jack, and I'm from the Year 9 Boys Youth Squad. Today, I'll be reading 1 Peter chapter 4 verses 1 to 6. So then, since Christ suffered physical pain, you must arm yourselves with the same attitude he had and be ready to suffer too. For if you had suffered physically for Christ, you have finished with sin. You won't spend the rest of your lives chasing your own desires, but you will be anxious to do the will of God. You have had enough in the past of evil things that godless people enjoy. Their immortality and lust, their feasting and drunkenness and wild parties, and their terrible worship of idols. Of course, your former friends are surprised when you no longer plunge into the flood of wild and destructive things they do, so they slander you. But remember that they have to face God, who will judge everyone, both the living and the dead. That is why the good news was preached to those who are now dead. So although they were destined to die like all people, they now live forever with God in the Spirit.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Mate, bit of a gnarly passage, some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about that.
Yeah, man, definitely a crazy passage. In fact, it got me thinking about my childhood.
Yeah, right. A bit of a nostalgic kind of moment going through that passage. I wouldn't have immediately kind of picked that up.
Yeah.
Talk to me. What's going on there?
100%. So basically, when I was younger, I liked to try new things. I was a bit of I'm a risk taker. So I like to try new things, but the catch there is that I like to kind of see other people do them first. So whether it's friends or family, I'd like to kind of learn from them. And I can think back to when I first learned to drop into a ramp on a skateboard, which is pretty crazy stuff, yeah? I spent like a whole day watching my cousin, kind of learning from him and like watching him and taking advice from him. So like I spent a kind of whole day following his lead, which is cool, man.
Yeah, right. Yo, watch the cousin on the skateboard ramp. Kind of nostalgic moment from 1 Peter that you kind of get out of there.
Yeah.
Great story, but exactly how is that connected to what's going on here?
100%. I understand, brother. Well, it's a great question, so thanks for asking that. Well, over the past couple of weeks, we've been I'm taking a look at what it means to declare and display what Jesus has done in our lives. An ongoing question that we've had is, how do we do this well when we're being insulted and ridiculed for it? How do we declare the name of Jesus when our friends and people we care about tear us down for it? See, we learned last week that Jesus has power over all things, so he didn't have to be afraid to take risks for him. And now chapter 4 is saying that not only is he all-powerful, but he also suffered here on earth so that we can look to him for guidance in how to live when people are insulting us and are judging us and are hurting us.
Aha, I get it. So what you're kind of saying there is that we can use Jesus' example
exactly right.
to kind of follow as we seek to kind of live as he did.
Exactly right. Hey, to dig more into that, let's read both verse 1 and 2 again. Let's have a quick read. So therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourself also with the same attitude, because whoever suffers in the body is done with sin. As a result, they do not live the rest of their earthly lives for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. Therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourself also with the same attitude. Therefore. See, this is backing up off of last week, where you heard about how powerful Jesus is, how he defeated sin, how he defeated death, and now how he sits with God up in heaven. And we saw that following Jesus leads you on a path of sharing in his glory and victory. But here in verse 1, we're also reminded that following Jesus and walking that same path also involves sharing in his suffering, because Jesus also suffered first. And what Peter is saying here is to look to Jesus and his life for guidance when you're struggling with abuse and judgment. Look to Jesus. Be like Jesus.
Yeah, all right. That's encouraging, but let me kind of just hold you up for a second there. Because, like, what's Peter talking about when he says, arm yourself with the same attitude in kind of verse 1? Like, what attitude is that?
Yeah, that's another awesome question, and I am glad you asked that again. So what is this attitude that's being talked about here? And to get into that a bit more, I will keep reading from just after that statement. So read with me. Because whoever suffers in the body is done with sin. As a result, they do not live the rest of their earthly lives for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. You see, the attitude we need to arm ourselves with is living for God. Rather than living for what the world has to offer, Peter is calling us to turn to God and live for him. Jesus gives us a perfect example, in fact, of what this looks like back in Luke. See, this is the night before he's going to die on the cross for us. So in Luke 22, verses 42, it shows Jesus saying, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but your will be done. See, Jesus is crying out to God here to not let him suffer. He knows he is about to be put to death, and as you can imagine, he's not too keen on it. He's asking God to let him live. But then he says the amazing thing, yet not my will, but yours be done. See, Jesus has armed himself with an attitude of living for God and his will during suffering. He's trusting in God's plan, and that's what we're being called to do here. Turn away from evil and turn to God.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary kind of example, extraordinary giving up of kind of self there to pursue God's will. Hey, Peter goes on in the next kind of verses kind of following that to kind of describe some of the evil that you're kind of mentioning there. It's kind of whack though, like they're not kind of commonly used words. So talk a bit about what's going on for Peter there as he kind of describes that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And this next section is a little bit crazy. A whole lot of words and things in there that we don't usually talk about on a Friday night. Hey, and maybe you don't even know what some of these words mean. And but how about we read the next couple of verses, kind of, I'm going to dig through that a bit more. So verses 3 and 4, read with me. For you have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. Are they surprised that you do not join them in their reckless wild living, and they heap abuse on you? There's definitely some crazy things going on there. But just before we get into what that all means, I want you guys to do something for me. So in your kind of hub that you're in now, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to talk about a big change that's gone on in your life. So either think or talk about it, but something big. So whether it's changing schools or moving houses or making new friends or maybe your family changes, just something big, just talk about it for the next 30 seconds. Let's go.
Yeah, lots of change. I mean, I think for me, big changes, I can think of a big change that took place about 12 or 13 weeks ago. This young guy kind of moved into my house and turned everything upside down. Nothing has been the same since. Big changes.
Big changes, yeah, there you have it. And I'm sure all you guys have had some big changes as well happen in your life. But for better or for worse, big changes do happen and they can affect every aspect of your life. And that's actually what's being explained by Peter here. The Christians he is talking to have had a gigantic shift in the way they live. They've come from a place of all those crazy things Peter listed out to instead living a life for God. They've had their life completely transformed by the gospel and by Jesus. And maybe you are thinking, well, none of that stuff really relates to me. I can't relate to any of it. And that's probably true. And you may know some people who do live like this, or you may not. But what Peter is pointing out is a cultural shift here, not just a personal one. Peter was speaking to Christians whose way of living was so different to what the culture at the time promoted. The drunkenness and idolatry were all things the culture at the time was promoting as good and okay. And Peter was reminding people to live differently. And I can tell you, he's also calling us to live a life different to those around us as well. And maybe the culture you are surrounded by is not on the same level as what the Romans were doing. Or maybe it is, but we're called to live differently. See, the gossip at lunchtime, the casual swearing, the small white lies. Maybe you've gone too far with a boyfriend or girlfriend. All those things we are told to turn away from. But it can be hard to turn away from. It can be so hard and then follow Jesus, because there's pressure from your friends and people you care about to live in a certain way. And you get ridiculed for living a different way. See, as we've seen throughout 1 Peter, if you live a life according to God's will, it brings down insults and comments and judgment from people. It's really, really difficult to live a life that declares and displays the gospel. And that's why Peter is telling us here to turn to Jesus, the Jesus who conquered everything but also suffered along his way to glory. Jesus knew how hard it was because it is hard. Suffering is hard. Judgment is hard. Being ridiculed for what you believe is hard. And Jesus went through all of that to save us. And now we're being called to do the same so that we can share in his victory and bring people to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good. I mean, we've been talking about it over the last few weeks, but the more that I discover Jesus in the Word, the more incredible he becomes, because he's so amazing. He is Lord. He's incredible. His sacrifice for us is amazing. Yeah. Thinking through, maybe there are some young people kind of out there. Maybe you're out there and you're thinking a similar way to this. But Luke, talk a bit about with all the judgment and all of the kind of ridicule and the abuse that you kind of talk about, that those declaring and displaying Jesus are going to get. Like, with all that kind of going on, like, do we really have to do the declaring, displaying thing? Like, can't we just be kind of good citizens, nice people, and leave it at that? Such a good question, brother. And I definitely understand how you could feel that way. And it can feel like that, can't it? How much easier would it be to be a secret Christian? Be a nice person, but keep the Jesus stuff on a down low. And the truth is, that was me in school. See, I know what it's like to be a secret Christian, because that was me all throughout high school. See, I didn't want to be seen as unpopular or not cool because of my faith. I didn't want my friends to judge me because I liked their opinion of me. It sure felt a lot easier to be a good person, but a secret Christian. The truth is, though, the big change in our life came not because of us and how good we are, but because of Jesus and how great he is. So no, we actually can't just be a good person and a Christian on the down low. But to dig a bit deeper into what that kind of means, let's take a look at those last 2 verses of 5 and 6. Read with me. But they will have to give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. For this is the reason the gospel was preached even to those who are now dead, so that they might be judged according to human standards in regards to the body, but live according to God in regards to the spirit. That's a fairly heavy couple of verses there. But Jimmy,
I want to ask you a question. And
Please.
Then, this question comes from a certain series we run here at Christ Central. I've even had youth involved in this series, but
Yes.
are you up for that?
Oh, mate, let's go. I
Easy
love
done.
questions.
I do love a good question. The question is, someone's going to make a movie about your life. So your whole life, kind of. Just make a movie
Yeah.
about Jimmy Jensen.
That's about time, I would have thought.
About time, 100%. Who would you like to kind of act you in that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like maybe Chris Hemsworth seems like an appropriate kind of representation. I feel like there's a
Same
lot of
look.
similarities there. I feel
Yeah.
like he could represent me well. You know, certainly physically we are quite similar. So yeah, maybe Chris
100%.
Hemsworth.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth sounds good.
Yeah.
I got a catch for you though.
Okay, talk to me.
So this film actually is going to be a picture of your whole entire life, not just your highlights, but every action, every thought,
Yeah,
everything you
right.
said from start to now, and it's all going to be displayed on a big screen to your family and friends. You still up for that?
Nah, I'm
No?
definitely out.
Not even with Chris Hemsworth playing you getting centuries in cricket, you're still not up for it?
I feel like Chris Hemsworth would bring enhance somewhat of my reputation, but everything. Nah, I'm definitely out.
Definitely,
That movie's off.
Yeah, that movie's cancelled.
Definitely off.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Jimmy, and I am sorry for putting you under the pump there so hard. But if we're being honest, I feel like we'd all be like that. There's certain things we wouldn't want on display. They may not be big, but I know there are definitely things that I'd rather keep to myself. And that's what's so jarring about the last couple of verses. See, when we stand in front of God, we're going to be judged for our lives, every detail, not just what we tell God about, but all of it. And as you can probably understand, being good just won't cut it. You see, God is a perfect God, and even one of those times that we mess up, well, that separates us from Him. So then imagine a whole life on display for Him to judge. But you see, Jesus, and this is the great part, Jesus came to save us from that judgment. So the suffering that He went through was to get rid of all the things we do wrong. So the suffering that He went through was what we were deserving from God. So you see, without Jesus, we aren't good people. We just can't cut it. We mess up. So the good that we do is declaring and displaying what Jesus did for us. So it is letting people know that we have been saved through Him. Being good and living like Christ can't be separate because Jesus is the good in us. He is the big change in Christians Peter was writing to, and He is the big change in us. And we can read in verse 6 that while we may be judged for living differently to the rest of the world, through Jesus, we can live according to God's will. And I want to encourage you tonight that if you're not a Christian and you're tuning in and you're wondering what makes Christians so different, well, it's Jesus. And I really want to encourage you to make Jesus the big change in your life because He died so that you can live differently. And if you're a Christian tonight, I really want to encourage you to arm yourself with the attitude of Jesus. Look to the example that He set to live a life following God. Take risks in declaring and displaying the gospel. Live differently. Be willing to declare the grace Jesus has shown you because He suffered for you so that you can live differently.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, how about we pray having heard that word? Let's pray together.
Awesome.
Heavenly Father, we thank You so much for Jesus. As we've read tonight, just being reminded of how incredible His love for us is, that He would go through all of that suffering, that He would submit to Your will, seeking to set His attitude towards doing Your will ahead of what he preserving Himself. What an incredible act of love Jesus has displayed for us on the cross. Help us to know that love more deeply. Help us to trust in the one who gave up His life for us. And as we discover how great He is, help us to also follow in His footsteps, setting our minds and our hearts as He has, having His same mindset, that we might live to put You first above all things, that we might live to declare and display Your glory to those around us. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you, Luke. I mean, it's so good to be hearing from the Word. We're going to be doing something a little bit different now. So we haven't got the live Q&A that we've been kind of doing over the last little while. Instead, you're going to be doing some Q&A together in your hubs if you're there in a hub right now. So you can jump into that with your leaders. If you're not in a hub, it's great to have had you with us. You can definitely hit us up on the socials if you've got questions kind of around tonight. We'd love to hear from you. But from us in the studio right now, we're handing over to Hubs, handing over. We're going to finish up. We're going to catch you guys next week, same place, same time. So we'll see you then.
See you guys.
Peace out.